Well, hello everyone and welcome back to Shutters and Speed. What are we up to today, I hear you cry? Well, we are actually back at Mick's place for one of his open workshop days. So, as we say here in Norfolk, let's run them their titles, boy, and get into what we're up to today and what we're likely to see. Yeah, so welcome back to Shutters and Speed. Yeah, today you join me here at Mick's place on a pretty cool February morning, and he's hosting one of his infamous workshop open days. There's people will be turning up here. They'll be having a look at a few old Triumph motorcycles mainly, but other marques as well. And hopefully we'll have a chat with a few of these people and see what the problems are they're having with their machines at the moment, and you know, generally speaking, go along those lines. There's quite a few people turning up here, and of course Mick's collection of motorcycles is on show as well. So you know, that's all good stuff. And the thing is, of course, is that most of you will probably remember my ride on Mick's Triumph TR7 Tiger. And if you'd like to have a look at that video at some point, a link will appear up here somewhere in the screen on the screen, so that you can go and have a look at that. But in the meantime, we'll have a wander around and have a look and see who's got what and what we've got to look at today. Right, so here we are with our main host, Mick, who's hosting this workshop open day here today for us all. So Mick, what's the thinking behind this opening up your garage to us all us plonkers to come and have a look around?
Well, there's one or two people who know what they're doing, but not including me, of course. But the idea is just it gives people a chance to have a play with the bikes. There's not much opportunity these days with modern bikes to actually touch them and learn about them. So you get a mixture of people like Andy, who knows exactly what he's doing, and other people who don't. And they might bring their own bike for us to try and fix, or they might just come along and watch, or they might just come and have a cup of tea and a chat.
Well, I think that's a brilliant thing for you to do, Mick. And you know, I must admit, I'm having great fun looking around all the bikes here today, and hopefully we'll catch up with a few people as the day progresses.
Absolutely.
So thanks very much, Mick.
No worries.
Yeah, so the original intention was to have a look at Mick's Triumph Daytona here, which is sort of partially stripped down already. It had a whole piston, and that was what we thought we was going to be working on. But then Greg arrives with his Triumph Bonneville on a trailer, and it is in superb overall visual great nick, but it turns out that it was having one or two problems with carburation and timing, and as it turned out, tappets. So it turned out to be a bit of a non-runner, but with the expertise of all the guys around us, especially Mick and Andy, who were searching through manuals and so forth to have a look, and they were looking at various parts, jets, etc., to see what they could do to put it right. But anyway, let's have a word with its lucky owner. Right, so here we are at Mick's place in his garage, and we've got Greg here with his Triumph. So, Greg, what sort of bike is this for a start?
Well, this is a Triumph Bonneville T120. The manufacturing year is 1970.
Right, and how long have you had it?
I've had it about 6 years now.
Yeah.
Pride and joy, really, but it just wants a bit of fine tuning, and hopefully our man over there will get it firing on 100%, and then it can be out on the road and
ready for spring.
Ready for spring.
Yeah, brilliant. So what is the problem? I mean, you brought it along here to Mick's open day. So what are you hoping to achieve today then?
Well, basically we've got a problem with the carburettors. They're not mixing correctly.
Right.
We're thinking it's too rich, too much petrol. We've just checked the jets, and the actual fact, if you wouldn't believe, they're the wrong size.
Oh right, okay. So hopefully Mick will put that right, or between you will, and she'll be running smoothly and ready for the springtime.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Greg. That's great.
Thank you.
Yeah, so with that, without further ado, the fella's set to work, and as you can see here, Mick is really getting down to it now. He's got the carburettors apart and having a look inside to see what the problems are. Having a word with the owner there just to get his sort of background. and you know, just to get some idea of what's going on. Now, Mick has had a lot of experience with working with old Triumphs, and his knowledge is almost unending, as it were, in terms of what he's come across so far. And there's a lot of further searching through manuals and so forth to see whether they could find the sort of standard settings for the bike and how it was set up. But anyway, let's have a word with Mick and see what he's found so far.
All right, okay, so what we're dealing with here is Greg's bike there, and the symptoms are, Greg, that basically you have to put the choke on when it gets warm and when you're on a higher throttle, otherwise it starts to bang and pop.
That's it.
So we're just checking the carb settings at the moment, just making sure it's as it should be. One thing we've found and we've already changed is the main jet, which actually counterintuitively we've put a smaller main jet in. Found 200s in there, and according to the manual it should be a 190 or a 180 depending on which book you believe. So what we're doing now is taking the carb bodies off to save taking the tank off. I'm going to check the slide here, make sure the slide is correct, and also the needle position. This being the needle, it should be a 3. Yeah, it should be a 3 according to the manual.
So let's leave the fellas on the inside of the workshop there working on Greg's bike, and we'll go outside to see Nev with his Honda Cub, which he pulled up on, which he's finding very enjoyable to ride and get about on. There's a more modern Triumph Bonneville here, which is being discussed by the three guys here, which is always a thing when you go to a bike meet. Of course, bikes turn up and people have a chat with them. And here's another one that is also quite nice. It's I think around a 2008 Triumph Bonneville, and it's looking really fine. And it was quite interesting chatting to the owner of this, and we had a good look round, and then we decided to have a sort of more in-depth interview really with Alan, the bike's owner, because he has quite as a lot of people have in this particular case, quite an interesting biking career. So let's grab a word with Alan.
Well, I've had several Triumphs, all starting with a Tiger Cub of the 1950s, and then I went on to BSAs, and I had several BSAs for a number of years, and then eventually, when I was 20 years old, I bought a Norton Commando.
Wow.
And that rather put all the other bikes out the window, and I was converted to Nortons from that moment on. So I ride the same 750 Norton Commando I bought in 1981. Still ride it now. It's done over 120,000 miles. So I'm really a Norton man.
Yeah.
But I've got a collection of Nortons, and I always have to have a modern bike for riding, you know, certain things. And I was using a Kawasaki 650, the W650, which is sort of a British look-alike bike. And my partner was after a bigger bike. And I said, oh, you should get a nice Triumph Bonneville, because so she went to buy this bike and actually bought it. We did the deal and bought it off a friend of mine who was selling it. And but that night she had a bit of a sleepless night and decided that it was too big for her. And she said, what are we going to tell Barry if we're not going to buy it? I said, don't worry, because I'll have it.
Well, that's brilliant.
Yeah, so that's how I became owner of this bike.
Oh, right,
which was a couple of years ago.
Yeah. I never looked back on it since.
No, I really enjoy it, because my Norton let me down when we were just about to catch a ferry to do a Scandinavian tour. But luckily this bike was all prepared, because when we was coming back from Scandinavia, I was going with another bike club on this bike to France. So it was all ready to go. So I had to quickly transfer all the luggage onto this, and I did a Scandinavian tour on this. And I just realised then what a great bike it was.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah.
You could just do anything,
yeah,
you know.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for that, Alan. That was great.
That's it. You're welcome.
So we'll take a look around one or two more bikes, and this one in particular caught my eye. It's a Royal Enfield Constellation, 700 cc's, and it is a 1960s vintage. Now this bike is a part of Mick's collection, and it has a very interesting past, and Mick has a very interesting story to tell about one of the assignments it went on. So let Mick take up the story.
This is a Constellation, early 60s, I can't remember, 60 or 61, and belonged to a guy called Mick. In fact, this belonged to him as well. He used this in the early 60s, and then later on he bought this, and this kind of took over. This was in storage for about 15 years, and the only thing I've done to it was recommission it. The red paint in the tank and panels has been redone because rust was coming through. But it does have a history in that Mick was asked to help out during Winston Churchill's funeral, and essentially delivering the day before and then collecting on the day films from photographers along the funeral procession, and was asked to go to the BBC building, the old, I can't remember where it's called, but anyway, the old building, pick up some films, and he told me he got to the BBC building, they were there waiting for him, lashed the films to the back of the seat, went off to Heathrow, and he was waved through onto the runway, waved to the steps of an aeroplane, American aeroplane, quickly got the films off the bike, got them in the plane took off. 8 hours later, that's the footage of Winston Churchill's funeral that was broadcast in America.
Right.
On this bike. So a little bit of history there.
Yeah.
So the next motorbike to take my eye was this beautiful BSA A10. Now this bike was once owned by Nev, who currently arrived today on the Honda Curb, but this bike has somehow found its way into Mick's ownership, and let's hear her fire up. So we now join Mick as he attempts to fire up the undoubted probably star of the show today, a beautiful 1930 Triumph NSD Deluxe. So here we see Mick sort of looking at the finer points of riding one of these, especially the gear change. He's about to show us how you do that. Clutch in and use the lever on the side of the tank there, which is a little old hat for people like me, but I'm sure it's a very pleasurable experience. But in a moment or two, Mick is going to go into a bit of detail about the sort of story behind this bike and how he acquired it.
So I went round to a friend of mine, Pete Hall, and he's into buying and selling bikes, and he got really into old bikes, and he'd seen this on eBay, and apparently at one point it was in the Haynes Museum, and he took it to a vintage owners meet and got it out the van, and suddenly he was several guys round telling him it was something special, and his response was along the lines of, well, yeah, no, it's an old Triumph. No, that really is something special. And to paraphrase what they told him and what I've learned since, is that they only made this model for 2 years. The NSD has got an upright cylinder, and they made the NSD Deluxe with a sloping cylinder, or quite a different engine. It's not just the same engine, it's quite a different engine for just the 2 years, just because of the fad of the sloping engine. Richard Cornelis, who's in New Zealand, his dad was the expert on the old bikes. Apparently there's a register of about 18 in the world, I'm told. I don't think that's on the register. So there's not that many of them around.
No, very rare.
So the next person to rock up is yet another Mick, and he's turned up on his beautiful 1951 Triumph Tiger T100. This model is equipped with a spring hub rear wheel, and the rear suspension is in the rear wheel hub. So let's rejoin the action with Greg's beautiful Triumph Bonneville. Here is Mick sort of finalising the fine tuning, as it were. He's fettling the points, making sure that they're all clean and well adjusted. And then we had a go at trying to start the thing up. But what the guys found was that the bike didn't seem to have as much compression as they felt it should have. And it later turns out that when they checked the tappets, which is what they're doing right now, they found that the tappets had no gap at all. Now, these tappets obviously have to have a certain amount of gap so that the valves close and seat correctly, and when they do that you get sufficient compression. So here we are having a look around, and there's a few adjustments being made with these with the tappets on it, and then we're ready hopefully for the final startup.
No, he's been sat there for a long while out.
Yeah. I don't know if we got any air leaks around these carbs yet, do we? No.
So here we are with the guys making the final adjustments, and they've got the old strobe timing lamp out to fine tune things to make sure it's running absolutely perfectly. Well, we've just come to the end of what has been a fantastic day here at Mick's place. We've had the workshop open. There's been several bikes for us to look at, several people to meet and chat to, one of which is my good friend Greg here, who's had quite a bit of work, it has to be said, done to his Triumph motorcycle in front of us here. So what have you made of today then, Greg?
Well, I think we should do this every week. I mean, yeah, I'd have never done this on my own.
No, you had two experts.
Andy and Mick, I mean, yeah, it was brilliant watching them.
Yeah.
I picked up a few bits and bobs, and yeah, couldn't do without them really. And as I say, done so much on it. I mean, we started this morning, and we finished 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, yeah. And it's now running quite nicely, isn't it? It has to be said.
Yeah, there's a few other little bits and bobs to do on it, but we'll get them sorted, and then it'll be brilliant. Yeah,
well, I think that's been a very informative and interesting day spent here at Mick's, which has been hosted by him so well as ever. And I'd just like to thank him, as I'm sure you would, Greg.
Absolutely, thank you very much.
For a fantastic
day, and for putting up with me, really. I mean, it's not like it was a small job, just a quick tinkle here and a tinkle there. It was strip this down, take that off, and clean it and everything else. But no, well done to him, mate. It's very good. Thanks very much.
So it's been a hugely constructive day for all concerned. So that brings an end to proceedings here and now, I feel. So without further ado, it'll be goodbye from Greg.
Yeah, goodbye.
And it'll be goodbye from me. And as ever, as we say here in Norfolk, do you keep on a troshin', boy. Until next time.
That's why you join these clubs. Then you,
I'll tell you what, I want to go down the pub later on. I've had headache.
you get to
They're
ask.
cheap. Might take a few kicks.
Right, go for it then.
The fact that it's not doing anything means I've not got the timing
Right.
quite right. Come on. You might need to edit it.